Given that the June LSAT just happened and we're looking ahead towards July and September, I thought that a lot of you might be retaking or considering a retake, and there are some common pitfalls I want to help you avoid. First off, too many students take exam after exam, measuring their results, being happy or sad about those results, and then moving on to the next thing. Now, the problem is that this burns through a lot of recent real LSAT prep test material. So at this point, you may be burning through it now, or you may have already burned through a lot of it. The problem is that there are a limited number of LSAT prep tests. There are currently 86 numbered LSAT prep tests and then a handful of unnumbered ones in the super prep books, as well as June 07, as well as the February 1997 LSAT. So there are a few more out there if you've burned through all 86 numbered ones, but whether you have or not is irrelevant, because the value in doing these exams is not simply to measure your progress or see where you stand. It's to learn from your mistakes. So the biggest key to your success, I would say, is make proper use of your actual LSAT prep tests. Don't feel like you have to do every single one. Don't resort to fake LSAT prep tests. Just use the real recent material. If you're going for July, maybe you want to focus on tests in the 70s and 80s because you only have 6 weeks remaining. On the other hand, if you're going for September, you could pretty much work through everything from exam 52 to present, which is a little more than the past 10 years worth of material. But that brings me to number 2, which is don't just work through these exams and measure yourself. Learn from your mistakes. Identify your weak areas. The identifying weaknesses is one of the biggest things you can do to improve your understanding of the exam, because there are a variety of tricks and traps they throw out there. There are maybe thousands of tricks they lay out there, and you're not falling for all 1,000 of them, or else you'd be getting a 120. So presumably you're doing better than that, which means that you need to figure out which specific traps you are uniquely prone to falling for so that you don't make those same mistakes again. So I would suggest, for logical reasoning, for example, figure out, was your mistake in the stimulus, or was it in the question stem, or was it in the answer choices? This is number 3 of the keys to LSAT retake success, the review process. Analyze your understanding or misunderstanding and where it came from. If it was in the stimulus, are you properly identifying conclusion versus evidence versus subsidiary conclusion or counter premise, whatever it may be, the different parts of the argument? Or was your misunderstanding in the question stem? LSAC is very clever at using unfamiliar wording and phrases for very common familiar question types. Or was your mistake in the answer choices? Figure out what was tempting about the wrong answer that made you pick it, and what ultimately makes it wrong, and what was discouraging about the right answer that pushes you away from it, and what ultimately makes it correct. You want to do this again and again and again so that you don't make those same mistakes again, because you could really make use of nothing more than 10 LSAT exams ever, and that would be sufficient if you reviewed them in enough detail to get you ready for whatever LSAC might throw your way. Once you have reviewed and identified your weak areas, then you want to orient your studying around that. And so maybe you're taking 1 or 2 timed exams a week and reviewing those. On top of that, articulate your review process, write it out by hand, type it out, speak about it with a friend or an instructor, somebody who is willing to sit down with you and talk through these LSAT problems. Then, once you figured out your weak areas, drill problems of that type. Maybe you want to focus on strengthening questions or grouping games or hard science passages or logic games, rule substitution questions in particular. You could go and just sit down and do every single rule substitution question from exam 57 when they began all the way through to present. Virtually every exam has at least one of those, if not 2. And so practicing those and drilling them in order by type can help you start to see the patterns and get a better handle on what you're doing. So a timed exam or 2 per week, plus detailed review, plus ID your weak areas, then drill them on the side. Everybody's retake process is going to be different. No 2 students have exactly the same retake process. But again, the value is in learning from your mistakes to avoid making them again. I have some LSAT retake study plans I will link for you here if you want to check them out and just get some ideas. Of course, you will have to adapt them to your own personal needs, but I think it's useful to just have a general framework of how you might go about doing that. So I'm putting the links to those in the chat here. Anyway, I hope you found this helpful. Please feel free to reach out if you need anything at all as you move forward with your prep. I love hearing from students, and I'm happy to help however I can. In the meantime, I wish you all the best and take care.